So this is a presentation for topic 9 from Econ 3. Title is the distribution of income and wealth. What I want to get across first of all is the difference between income and wealth. Income is obviously money earned, so it's getting paid a wage, it's getting paid a pension, something like that. Wealth is your store of assets. So the difference between income and wealth is potentially you could be a very wealthy person but earn a very, very low income. Versus that, you could have a very high income, but if you spend it all, you blow it on holidays, meals out, etc., you might have a very low level of wealth. Generally, the older people get, 40s and 50s, things like that, then their level of wealth tends to accumulate. In old age, wealth might deteriorate as people start digging into it to try and pay to maintain standard of living. What I want us to cover in this topic is the distribution of income in effect now, and we can measure this through something called the Gini coefficient. Before we get there, what we need to look at is something we call the Lorenz curve. Now, what I'm going to stick on the axes is percentage of population and percentage of income. Okay, now the best way to understand this is we look at the population axis first of all. We'll assume this is 0%. Population here, 100%, so somewhere in the middle here would be 50%. Here would obviously be 25%, and here 75%. Income is both the vertical axis, so 100%, obviously that would translate to 100% here as well. We have 50%, 25%, and 75% here. Let's just transfer them across here. So 25%, 50, and 75. Now, if we were to draw a Lorenz curve first of all, which shows full equality, we'd say the lowest 25% of the population earn 25% of the income level. We'd then say that the first 50% of the population earn 50% of the income. So this red line, our curve, shows full equality. That's when everybody earns the same. Okay, now what we will tend to get though is some inequality in every country across the world. If we went for a very, very unequal society, the line would more or less hug the axes. And what this shows is that most of the income of the country is in the hands of a very small minority of the population. What we tend to get is something like this. And this measures some level of inequality. The further our blue line is from the red line, the more unequal our society is. Now we can use this to calculate something we call the Gini coefficient. Okay, now the equation, again, you're not expected to know, but the values generated are quite important for you to understand. It's calculated from this. This area here is A. This area here is B. So the Gini coefficient is calculated by dividing A by A plus B. From this, we get a value between 0 and 1. 1 will show full equality, but everyone earns the same. It's actually on the red line. We get a score of 0, full inequality. So the further our number gets towards 1, the more equality we've got. The further we get towards 0, the more unequal our society is. Let's talk very quickly about what causes inequality. Now, some of the main causes of inequality are wealth, first of all. Generally, people from a more wealthy background have got a much better opportunity to earn money in the future. They get access to the better schools, they've got contacts to help them get better jobs. So they've got more of the skills required to help them people get the better jobs in the first place. So linked to that is skills. And generally, as we said before, those that are most wealthy can obtain the most skills to earn more money in the future. Not always the case, but that is something that we tend to see statistically. Location. is another important factor. Some parts of the UK have got more higher incomes than some parts of the country. So, for example, Middlesbrough, the northeast of England, Northern Ireland, wages are much lower than what they are in the southeast, or London, for example. And that is because of the opportunities available to people. They differ from region to region. Other factors that create inequality: old age. So when people retire, their ability to work reduces, therefore their potential income increase, especially if they're relying on living on an old age pension, a state pension scheme. Clearly, inequality can be created by unemployment, losing your job, low income, therefore poorer people, sickness, disability as well. Obviously, these restrict your ability to work. So these are the main factors that create inequality in a country. What we want to think about now is whether inequality is a good or a bad thing. So, good and bad. Now, I imagine most people would say that high inequality is seen as a bad thing. Let's think about why it's bad first of all. For many people, it will mean an inability to meet wants and needs, and in particular, their needs is the important thing. So, in other words, it will mean low economic welfare for some people. Okay, so for the people that are in poverty, clearly this is an issue for them. But there are greater issues for the economy. We could talk about, and we'll explain what these mean in a minute. We've got lower efficiency. We've got problems of potentially higher crime. And again, we'll explain what these mean in a minute. We've got problems of dependent population. So let's talk about these issues for the economy then. If people are in inequality, you know, they're very poor, for example, low income levels, it means those people won't be able to develop their skills to their full potential. That will mean as a country it's unlikely we'll achieve our production possibility boundary. People are not working to their potential. That will obviously affect our future international competitiveness as a country, through supply side policies, things like that. Higher crime rates. It's common sense, I suppose. Those people in poverty want to escape it. If they haven't got the skills to develop and get better employment in the future, they often resort to crime. So that creates a big opportunity cost for the government, having to pay to deal with these problems, takes funds away from education and healthcare. It also creates a dependent population. If you've got many people with a criminal record, low skills, they will find it very difficult to get a job. Those people will become a burden on society for the rest of their lives. Good things about income inequality though. I would say it inspires people to excel. If everyone's handed everything to them on a plate, well, have they got an incentive to work? In society at the moment, you've got people living on government handouts. Some people are happy with that. If those benefits were maybe reduced, then it would force more people to go and look for work and pay their own way in life. So, in some ways, you could argue it might inspire greater efficiency. It makes people want to go out and improve their lot in life. That might actually be good for achieving our production possibility boundary. It doesn't make people complacent. What we can else talk about as well is about reward for hard work. If you're a high income earner, you might be there on merit. You've worked hard, you've gained a degree, you've worked hard at work, you've got promotions. A lot of people say, why should that person pay a lot of their income in tax to help fund the poor in society? The argument is that you should get that reward for you working hard. So again, it should be an inspiration really, to encourage you to work hard. It's the motivating factor. Right, okay, so what I would conclude is that typical economics answer, you've got good and bad points. My short conclusion would be that income inequality is bad when it's too high. But I don't think any economist would advocate a society where everybody earns the same. Some degree of income inequality is a good thing, but society should ensure that it provides for people to give people the opportunity, the encouragement to better themselves. Um, if we wanted to reduce income inequalities, we decided it was too high. How do we go about reducing inequality? So what we're looking at here is government interventions. And here's some of the most common ones. Financial benefits. And of course that will be linked to a progressive tax system. So the idea is the higher income earners will pay a higher percent tax than the lower income earners. So that will be income tax. This money will then be redistributed to the poor in terms of unemployment benefits, disability benefits. It could include old age pensions. It's all about redistributing money from the rich to the poor to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor in society. We've also got benefits in kind. So this is things such as free education, free healthcare. And again, this is designed to give people the opportunity to achieve their potential in life. And again, it will be funded through a progressive tax system, which means that the higher income earners pay more towards running these services than the poor do. So it's about giving people the opportunity to succeed. We could also talk about government regulation. And one example is a minimum wage. So if we give people a minimum wage, it should in theory mean that more people can earn more money, closer the gap between the rich and the poor. It ensures that everybody can meet their most basic needs. Other regulation, strict health and safety requirements businesses must follow, rest periods between shifts, giving people a better lifestyle, I suppose, in effect. Um, what a lot of these policies that we offer in this country tend to do is to provide a safety net, trying to ensure that people can achieve and meet all their basic needs: free education, free healthcare, free housing or cheap housing if you need it, um, unemployment benefits, an old age pension, disability benefits. It ensures a safety net. But what they must try and do through these policies is give people the incentive to go out and work. We want to avoid what we call the poverty trap, where some people are better off on benefits than working. You want to give people an incentive to go out and work, which means they must earn more money, be better off by working than not working. Last thing I want to mention on this topic are two different types of poverty. We've got absolute and we've got relative. Absolute poverty is where you cannot afford to meet your most basic needs. So in other words, you can't physically survive on what you've got. In this country, these government interventions we've just mentioned should ensure against absolute poverty. So no one really in this country should be in absolute poverty by choice. People who tend to be in this problem are people who are addicted to drugs, people alcohol dependent, find themselves in absolute poverty. They cannot escape that cycle of life. Relative poverty is where you cannot afford to buy what we would regard as the norms in society. So in Britain, because we're a wealthy country, this will differ from parts of Africa, for example. In Britain, you might be in relative poverty if you cannot afford a holiday once a year, a mobile phone, a new TV. Whereas in somewhere like Africa, some of the countries in Africa, you might be in relative poverty if you cannot afford um, somewhere half decent to live, or you cannot afford to send your kid to school. So we've got different levels of poverty, and in terms of relative terms, it differs from country to country. Absolute poverty, the definition is the same from country to country.